I'm Susie Farron. I am a Senior Head of Funding in the England Portfolio Development Team at the National Lottery Community Fund. I'm just going to hand over to a couple of colleagues who are joining me to introduce themselves as well, and then we'll run through some slides for you. So over to you, Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Stapley. I'm a funding officer here at the National Lottery Community Fund. I've been working as part of the development team.
Thank you, Hannah, and hello. Yes, my name's Ewan Davison. I'm a funding policy manager on the team.
This Community Power Fund, the development phase, sits really centrally in our new strategy, which I hope you've all seen on our website, but if not, there is a lot more information there. The strategy was launched last year and it runs up until 2030, and it's called It Starts with Community. And on this slide, you'll be able to see our 4 community missions, and these are: we'll support communities to come together, to help children and young people thrive, to enable people to live healthier lives, and to be environmentally sustainable. And running along the bottom of the slide, you can see that we've also made a commitment to an equity-based approach to tackling inequality. So what this means is that although our funding is available to all communities, we'll invest the most in places, people and communities who experience poverty, disadvantage and discrimination. And we've also recognised that although funding is our most important tool, there are many other ways that we can create and contribute to a stronger and more resilient society. So, for example, by convening and bringing people, bringing different organisations rather, together to develop new opportunities and solutions, so much like this. We can also support grant holders and give advice and information to help strengthen them and their work. And a key one here is participation and engagement. So we'll work to increase the involvement of different voices involved in shaping our work. So through our Communities Coming Together mission, but also actually across all of our work, we've committed to putting community power, agency and control at the heart of how we work and what we fund. The Community Power Fund is central to this, and it's a really exciting departure for us. So I'll hand back to Susie for her to tell you some more.
Thanks, Hannah. So yes, that's a little of the context, just to put this piece of work in the context of our broader strategy and how we want to work in England, which hopefully some of you will have seen in the last few weeks, and that's why you're joining us. So these are kind of some 3 key messages. So if you take nothing else away from this, these are the kind of the core messages we want you to take away from this. The first one is really about, as Hannah said, us wanting to do things differently. So this phase is a development phase. This isn't kind of a traditional grant programme that we're opening at this point. It's really a call out for partners to join us for the development phase, and I'll talk more about the wider detail about the wider programme in due course. But it's important to kind of remember this is the development phase of a wider, much bigger programme. The second key takeaway at this point is we're looking for somewhere between 10 and 15 partners to work with us, and crucially to work with each other, to learn together and to help us shape and develop the kind of principles of the future programme. And the third key takeaway from our perspective is really a focus on working in and with and supporting those communities that experience the kind of the lowest levels of power and agency, kind of those communities that are least set up and least able to influence the decisions that affect them at present. So those are our kind of 3 key takeaways from the session. I'm now going to talk a little bit more through the kind of detail around community power and the development phase more broadly. So what do we mean by community power? So we define community power in that local communities are able to influence and change the places they live, the services they use and the decisions that affect them. So everything that influences their lives in the place that they are, being able to kind of influence the decisions that are made around that. And we know this is important. That's why you all know it's important. Hopefully that's why you've joined us today. And there's all sorts of different kind of evidence and data, live, learn and experience that points towards this. And one kind of specific point of data around this is only 27% of people in England feeling that they can influence decisions affecting their local area. And then an even smaller proportion, so only 8% saying that they got involved in decisions about local services. So really, what this isn't is it isn't just community engagement or consultation, as important as those are. It's really about communities being supported to influence and enabled to influence the decisions that affect them, the services they use, and those broader places that they live. And what is the Community Power Fund? So as I've said, what we're talking about today is predominantly the kind of development phase for it, but in the wider context. The Community Power Fund is a commitment that we've made that is 10-year commitment of over £100 million, which will launch from 2026 and run actually beyond the length of our strategy. And that's in recognition that community power work really takes a deep amount of time and effort and embedded within communities for long periods of time to really build that change. It will, as I've said, target those communities where there are currently low levels of community power, agency and control. So where people really feel and are least able to shape the decisions that affect them. And one of the really important features for us of the bigger Community Power Fund programme is that we'll really build the evidence base of what works to increase community power and agency and control, and under which conditions. So that's really one of the things that we consider a key building block of community-led change. And we want to understand how we can create more of it and how we can support more and learn about what works. The aims of the Community Power Fund, as I've just described, are really to increase community power, voice, kind of agency and control in those communities least able to influence change. So that could be things like kind of low social capital, trust, belonging, and also to learn about what works, increasing community power under those conditions, understanding what the barriers are and learning about what best supports communities and increases community power. And the specific outcomes that we're looking for, and you will be forgiven for not being fully up to speed necessarily on our missions framework, which is what we're kind of describing our outcomes framework as. But the outcomes, this is our kind of broader outcomes framework as the National Lottery Community Fund that we're working towards across everything we do. But the specific outcomes within that we're working towards through the Community Power Fund are around empowering people and communities to make a positive difference and to really build a sense of safety, belonging and trust in others in their local area. And Hannah talked briefly about the 4 community-led missions just now. Within a couple of those, we also have some outcomes we're working towards around kind of empowerment and people feeling and able to make a positive difference in their communities, specifically around health and well-being. We're not really expecting through this phase individual projects and activities to focus necessarily solely on those specific kind of health or environment missions, but we thought it was important just to mention them here. So that's the kind of wider Community Power Fund as a whole. And as I've said, and hopefully kind of why you're all signed up to this and given us 45 minutes of your time is for us to talk about this development phase, this partnership piece of work that we're talking about today. And as I've mentioned, this isn't the full Community Power Programme. It's reasonably small grants to work with organisations, to work with us, to work with each other and to really help shape the principles of the future programme, but through the process of delivering community power work in communities. So it's a total of £1.2 million available for this development phase across England, and that's between £50,000 and £80,000 per partner to deliver work in a community. Crucially, it's a community of place, so a geographic place. Importantly, this will be both for kind of delivering that community power work, but also working with us and with the other partners to share learning, share insight, and help us really develop some of those kind of principles for the future. What it might be is kind of expanding existing delivery or delivering kind of new activities or in new communities, in and with new communities. But crucially, we're looking to work with kind of a mix of different partners, delivering potentially using kind of different models at different geographic scales and in different places. So we're really interested in bringing together a mix of different partners to work with us and each other through the development phase. And this is quite a simple graphic, but I just wanted to kind of pause and reflect on some of the information we've shared so far. So this is really the development phase, as you'll see here, and this is definitely not to scale. It's just try and represent that this development phase is really kind of a drop in the ocean of the bigger long-term commitment that we've made to the Community Power Fund. So that small blue circle in the middle is the kind of £1.2 million that we've set aside for the development phase, and it's in this bigger kind of pink circle of the £100 million that we have available over 10 years for the wider programme. So this is really just a way to say that if you don't think that this kind of development phase partnership working is right for your organisation, that's absolutely fine. Kind of please know that this is really just the start of our work on the Community Power Fund. I wanted to talk a little bit now around the kind of activities that we're thinking that organisations might deliver during the development phase in terms of the kind of community power activities. So one of the main points is it needs to kind of be new work. That doesn't mean the concept needs to be entirely new, but it can't be double funded. So this is really kind of either additional work you're already doing or new work. It's quite a short delivery period. We know that this work is long term. We know it takes time. This is a really development phase to help us shape that future longer term vision. So we are aware that this development phase isn't as long as we would put in place for the bigger programme, which is why that programme is kind of covering 10 years. But we're really looking to fund activities that enhance communities' ability to influence the decisions that affect them, the services they use, and those kind of decisions over the places that they live. It could be new activity, as I've said. It could be activity that you're already delivering, but working with a kind of larger geographic area or in a new community. Although we do really expect organisations and partners to have a deep connection into and trust within and with those communities you propose to work with. You'd use the grant to deliver activities, but also, as I've said, to work with us and the other partners around this kind of partnership working to inform the principles of the broader programme. I just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about the kinds of partners that we're looking to work with. So I've said already that we're really interested in working in kind of a range of partners to learn about what works in different scenarios and to inform those kind of future principles. So, as I've said, it's a mix of partners focusing on communities with low levels of empowerment, low ability to influence decisions at the minute that affect them. But it's really about going beyond the engagement and really kind of working with communities, working in communities with that real deep trust and connection in them to influence change and to influence the decisions that affect them. We're really keen to hear from potential partners who can demonstrate kind of community power and equity in their values, in their ways of working, and just to demonstrate that really deep connection and trust in and with the communities that they're proposing to kind of work with and in. And crucially, given that this is the development phase, that real commitment to working in partnership with each other and with us to learn together during this phase. So I guess on the kind of flip of it, what is it we're not looking for? So as I've said, we can't double fund activities. So if it's the same activity and you're seeking funding for it and it's already funded by us or someone else, we can't fund that. It has to be additional work. We won't be seeking partners whose work is really kind of engagement and just consultation. As I've said, those are really crucial parts of the puzzle, but that's not what this piece of work is about. We won't be seeking at this point to work with partners where working in and with communities where there's kind of already really strong levels of empowerment and influencing the decisions that affect them. And we are really focusing on communities of geography and place through this process. So we're not in this process looking to work with virtual communities or communities of interest. Those are really vital, they're really important, and we have other funding mechanisms that can support those. And we're also, as I've said, this is kind of the flip of the working in partnership. We're really not looking to work in this phase, in the development phase, with partners who wouldn't feel able to kind of share their learning and their evidence base into the partnership with us. I wanted to do a quick run through of kind of what we think the partnership might look like. This is partnership working, so we're not going to stipulate at this point. This is exactly how it works. You know, the essence of this is we want to work in partnership with the partners. So we're going to develop that with that collection of partners who come into the process to make sure that you know, it works for everyone. So we've just kind of working out the frequency of getting together and things that will be really shaped collectively through the partnership. But at the minute, we think it might kind of be some activities along these lines. So delivering, obviously, activities and community power activity in and with communities, but also coming together online or in person, depending on what works, to help kind of share reflections and learning, exploring barriers and identifying potential areas kind of for support needs. Also potentially kind of hosting visits, going on visits to each other. We thought that would be a really interesting place to have in this, and shaping those principles of the future programme. So that's a little bit about how we envisage the kind of partnership working together. But as I said, it's really crucial that that is shaped by the partners who we are working with. And then a bit that I imagine is part of what a lot of you have been waiting to hear around the kind of process that we'll go through to select partners. So the timeline that we've got, we announced these back on the 6th of November. We are here today at the webinar on the 28th. And hopefully you've seen that we're intending for expressions of interest to open on the 8th of January. And there'll be a form available on the website then. Expressions of interest will close kind of 5th of February. And then by the end of February, we're committing to having a decision to anyone who's submitted an expression of interest around whether they be taken forward to a full assessment. At which point full assessment will open, and we're aiming for those kind of final funding decisions to be communicated by the end of May, and then the partnership can kind of get going. It may be earlier than that, but that's really our intention at the minute. We will be putting the questions that we're going to ask in the expression of interest onto the website in advance so that people can see them. I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to talk through some of the kind of the community power development phase specific questions. Now, there will be a range of other questions around your organisation, its name, the key individuals and things, and we'll make sure that those are referenced on the website as well so that you can prepare yourself for putting in an expression of interest if you choose to. So the first kind of key question for us is tell us about your organisation's experience of supporting communities to increase community power. So this is really about kind of the work you've delivered in the past to improve it, the approaches you've taken. So really an opportunity to demonstrate to us your work in this space previously. The second key question is what you'd like to do. So this is kind of the activities that you want to deliver, what you'd like to do in the space. As we've said, you know, we're happy to fund activities you're already doing as long as it's additional and not able to do the kind of double funding. We're happy to fund part of your work if other parts of it are already funded. So that's sometimes referred to as match funding. But this is really the space to kind of tell us what it is that you would like to be doing throughout the partnership. The third question is about describing those communities, that community that you want to be working in or that you are already working in. And I think, as I've said a couple of times, we're happy to support organisations and work with partners if they're working in multiple communities, but we really want to understand that you can demonstrate that really deep kind of connection and trust to and within the communities that you're working in and proposing to work in through this process. And the final of our four kind of key questions related to this is about kind of demonstrating community empowerment and equity through your values and through your work. So as Hannah said at the outset, we're committed to kind of developing an equity-based approach to tackling inequality. And we really mean through that acknowledging not all communities start at the same point and with the same resources. So we're really keen to hear from you about how your organisation makes sure everyone has an opportunity to contribute, but also how you might demonstrate kind of community power and empowerment through your values, through your work. It could be in kind of your governance structure as an organisation. So really demonstrating how it lives through the structure and the work of your organisation. So that's the whistle-stop tour of the kind of the four key questions. As I've said, there will be other questions on the expression of interest form. They will be more related to your organisation and the key individuals, and we'll make sure that you can see those in advance as well.